my new position, new location after Texas was in Hanover, Germany. The first week I was there was kind of getting used to a new way of doing business. There were orientation experiences I had to go through. And I met a British engineer. He had just been hired, so that both of us arrived the same day. Sunday came around, and I said to him, hey, let's go to breakfast someplace. He said, great. So he had a newspaper, an English newspaper under his arm, and we went out and tried to find someplace that was open. Turned out there was a big beer garden near where our shop was, and we went into the beer garden. This was in September, and it was a kind of a chilly day, and it wasn't actually raining, but it was cloudy, and there were hardly any people in this beer garden. There must have been 200 tables out there. It was all outdoors. And they did have a breakfast menu. Well, John House, the English engineer, is reading his English newspaper. And I'm just looking, I was looking at a section of it and just kind of looking around, see what's going on around us. And all of a sudden, John, who's reading diligently in the newspapers, dropped the newspaper and he said, did you hear that? And I said, what? He said, look over there. Well, there were two young women who had just taken a seat at a table near us. They looked Italian. They were about our age. And John said, I think that one girl said, oh, brother. And he said, that's not a German expression, and we don't often say it in England, so I'm going to guess they're American. Well, with that, we both got up, walked toward their table, and spoke to them, and I said, I had just taken a job in Germany. I was an American, and I think I heard you say, oh, brother. And she said, well, yeah, we may have said that. Who are you? So I said, well, I'm Bruce Chester, and this is John House. We're engineers with a oil field service company here in Hanover. And she said, okay, yeah. She said, well, my name is Anna. And before she was able to say her last name, which she did, or would have, I said, Makados. And she was startled. And her friend, whoever her friend was, turned out it was her sister, both scooted back in their chairs. And they were startled. They had a startled, fearful look on their face. And the first girl said, why did you say that? How did you know that? And all of a sudden I was startled myself because I didn't know. Now this is happening in a matter of seconds. It's happening rather quickly. Then all of a sudden I remembered. And I said, you went to the University of Illinois and you lived on East Gregory in an apartment house across from a fraternity on the other side of the street, 1956. And she moved further back, and she said, who are you? And I said, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't startle you, but this is an amazing thing to me. If I'm not mistaken, when you gave me your name, it rang a bell. She said, when I was in high school. I said, when I was in high school, some of my buddies and I would go to the University of Illinois campus and just, not do nice things. And on this particular day, we were throwing ice balls at some big windows on a fraternity house on East Gregory. And they were slamming into the windows on a porch that surrounded the building and made a terrible noise. They never broke, but the noise was terrible. All of a sudden, on this particular night that I'm sharing with you, a whole bunch of guys came running out of the house. They could hear it. And they saw us in the street where we were making our ice balls and throwing at the window. And they chased us across the street. And I said, this is what I remember. We ran between two apartment houses, both the doors of which and steps led down to a walk between them. And we ran up that walk as fast as we could, being chased by these fraternity guys. And you came down the steps from one of those apartment houses, and one of my buddies, who was kind of a smart aleck, said, "Hey, honey, we'll come back. I'd like to meet you. What's your name?" And you said, "Anna Makaitis." And we ran on. Of course, we never came back. But that's the story. And she was startled even more. She didn't, I'm sure, remember that occasion. It wasn't something you would necessarily remember. But I remembered it. I don't know why. Well, I find it interesting, experientially, if you stay in your own home country, things just seem normal. But when you leave your country and go out into the world, things look different. From your own country, if you stay there, everything in the world looks big. But when you get out of your country, you have these experiences and you realize the world's not so big, as I experienced in Hanover that day. But one more quick story. I met a guy in Libya that had his own contracting company and did work for these drilling rigs. And he had introduced me to the idea of going to grad school. He was going to do the same thing. He was going to sell his company and go to grad school. And he told me about a school that I finally ended up going to in Arizona, School of International Management. But anyway, he told me about it, and I did follow through on it. It was exactly what fit what I thought I needed at that time. So, make a long story short, I graduated from that school down in Phoenix, Arizona, and took a job in Cincinnati and began traveling all over the world representing our products internationally. And I was in Santiago, Chile, about 2 years after I'd graduated. And I was staying at a very nice hotel, and I was walking from a cab up the steps to that hotel, and I saw a guy walking down the steps, and I thought, boy, he looks familiar. And as we got closer, I realized it was the same guy that I knew in Libya who introduced me to the school in Arizona. It is indeed a small world, filled with all kinds of interesting adventures.